Hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking at tritone substitution in comparison with the augmented sixth chords that we looked at last week. Well, there are many variants of them, but we looked at the three most common forms of augmented sixth chords. So in the key of C major or minor, for the sake of convenience, there are these three: Italian sixth, French sixth, and a German sixth. And they typically resolve to a dominant chord, because this augmented sixth interval tends to expand. It resolves outwards to an octave. It's in reverse, it's inversion. It's inversion, diminished tenth or diminished third will contract to an octave or to a unison. So this particular interval, this augmented sixth interval, tends to expand. Now, I said they typically resolve to a dominant because there are examples of them resolving to a tonic, or they can occur in a passing motion. But typically and traditionally, these augmented sixth chords serve a predominant function, resolving to a dominant. Now, to avoid this parallel motion, in the case of German sixth, you can place the second inversion of tonic. The second inversion of the tonic. Some people will spell it, but it can be looked at as an altered form of a dominant, even though its components are identical to the tonic chord. So anyway, this way you can avoid this parallel fifth motion. So I said these augmented sixth chords precede a dominant. So are they secondary dominant then? Well, if you look at this chord, French sixth in particular, it is definitely secondary dominant. It's the second inversion of a dominant seventh chord. So it's this chord, right? D seventh flat fifth. It can be spelled this way, too, right? With A flat in the bass. And if it goes, since it goes to G, it is a secondary dominant. So from this or that to this, yeah. So then how about this? German sixth. This is a peculiar chord because, I mean, this is obviously a dominant seventh chord, but the second inversion of a dominant seventh chord, but this sounds like a root position dominant seventh chord. Or to avoid the now it sounds like a root position dominant seventh chord, but it is not an ordinary dominant seventh chord, because F sharp is not the same as a G flat in this context. Right, I mean, if you play these two notes on the piano, F sharp sounds identical to a G flat, but in functional harmony they have different contextual meanings. So let's leave this for a moment and let's proceed to the next progression. So here's a rather a typical, almost too boring 2-5-7 progression. So 2-chord, 5-7, and a tonic. And we all know that, well, the reason a dominant 7th chord has such a strong tension, a strong pull towards the tonic is because of its 3rd and 7th degrees. The 3rd tone typically leads up to the tonic. And well, in this case, it descended to a G, but this is the leading tone, whereas the 7th resolves downwards to the 3rd degree of the tonic. Now, because it sounds almost too boring, or it just, we've heard this progression over several centuries. So, in jazz in particular, they replaced this with its tritone mirror image, as it were. Now, a tritone, if you transpose a tritone by a tritone, you still get the same, essentially the same tones. So if you, so F will become a C flat, and B natural will become F. Now, if you transpose this chord by a tritone, you get this strong sounding chord, right? Oh, sorry. So we went from this, so 5/7, right? Now we are replacing this dominant 7th chord with its tritone inversion. So why not put why not make this a 7th chord, minor 7th chord, and then you've got this. So this sounds like. Or in jazz, you typically end it with a major 7th chord. So this tritone substitution provides a very smooth transition between these two chords. Now, some people will argue that C flat is not the same as B natural. So but in jazz in particular, and in contemporary music in general, this does function as a leading tone. Another way to look at this is, this chord is spelled D flat 7th, but if you look at the individual tones, you've got, so from the perspective of a G 7th chord, you've got this sharp 11th, flat 5th, so 7th, flat 9th, and then 3rd, right? Without the root. It's still it's an altered form of a G 7th chord without the root. And if you lower this chord, so if you want to see the root, and if you lower this chord, this tone even further, you've got this So C sharp, D flat, C sharp, F, G, B. You've got a full G7th chord in an altered form. So is a tritone substitution the same as augmented sixth chords? Well, I personally think that there's a semantic difference or even an ontological difference between the two. Augmented sixth chords essentially fulfill a predominant function, whereas the tritone substitution is a dominant. It serves a primary dominant function. And there's a semantic difference between a secondary dominant and a primary dominant. So for next week, you can write up a couple of pages about what you think of this topic, and we'll discuss it further next week. Thank you very much.